Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to give everyone a moment to join us, but welcome. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for the message. So as everyone is filling the room, I just want to welcome everyone to our REALTOR Safety webinar. We're very happy to have everyone here with us today. We're going to give it just a couple of minutes so our room can fill up with all of our attendees, and then we're going to get started. Seeing all the chats coming in. Hello to everyone. It's always nice to know where everyone's from. If you want to drop that in and tell us your city and state. See, Kentucky, Chicago. Whoa, it's going so fast. All over the country. That's wonderful. Wow, okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead. I'm just going to kick us off here with some housekeeping here at the very beginning. I have Jen Stanbrough here with us today. She's going to be presenting the webinar, and I'll tell you a little bit more about Jen here in just a moment. But first, wanted to let everyone know we are saving about 15 minutes of the webinar for a Q&A with Jen following her presentation. To send those questions to me, please drop your question into the Q&A section. That is separate from the chat feature. Everyone identify that Q&A there at the very bottom of your screen. If you don't see it, click that participants button, and then that Q&A should appear for you. So drop those in throughout the presentation, and at the very end, I will present those questions to Jen. So without further ado, I would like to introduce everyone to Jen. Jen Stanbrough has been a trusted leading broker in the Des Moines, Iowa area since 2006. She's helped over 800 clients to fill their home ownership dream and close sales of a total of $200 million. Jen has served on the board of directors and as executive director for the Des Moines Area Association of REALTORS, and is an RPAC major investor. Her strong interest for education of REALTOR safety has led to her serving as a board member, director, and executive office for the not-for-profit Beverly Carter Foundation. Jen's passion for real estate safety ignited after experiencing the loss of her dear friend, Ashley Oakland, who was killed while holding an open house on April 8, 2011 in West Des Moines, Iowa. Years after this tragedy, Jen has tried to develop a purpose in the absence of explanation. This has fueled her desire to bring awareness to real estate safety and to encourage the safety conversation to be one which is repeated and remembered. Without further ado, I will pass it over to Jen. Jen?
Thank you so much. So again, I want to thank you guys all for joining us and taking some time to listen about safety and ask some questions. It really means a lot to me that you take time out of your day because I know we are all super busy. We're going to kind of skip over that one. So as she mentioned, my name is Jen Stanbrough. I'm from Iowa, which is kind of, if you are not as great with geography as I am, or as I'm not, it is kind of the middle-ish part of the United States, above Missouri and below Minnesota. Iowa, we are known for our farming, particularly our corn, not potatoes, which would be Ohio. We're known for our Cyclone and Hawkeye football, which just announced we will be getting back in October. Not the Buckeyes or the Huskers, which are rivals from Nebraska and Ohio. We have the Iowa State Fair every summer except 2020. Thank you, COVID, which if you have never been to the Iowa State Fair, you will have to Google it. It is crazy event. It runs a couple of weeks long. There are rides, there are horse shows, there are animal presentations, quilt and art displays, and pretty much every fried food on a stick that you could imagine. Iowa is also, we're known for RAGBRAI, which is a week-long bike ride in July, again, except this year, where people come from all over. They ride their bikes from small town to small town, and the red carpet is rolled out for them, and it's quite a fun event. Again, just a little more Iowa history. We have some famous Iowans that were originated here. John Wayne, Johnny Carson, President Herbert Hoover, Ashton Kutcher. And finally, just so you can pass your how much do you know about Iowa quiz when asked, some of the most memorable movies that were shot here were Field of Dreams, Twister, Bridges of Madison County, and of course, Children of the Corn. So a little bit more about myself. I obtained my real estate license back in 2006. I had just had my first child and was ready to transition into something new. I had done mortgages for the last 5 years. And as I was trying to think what my next step would be, I thought that I like fancy houses and it'd be fun to walk through those often. I would not mind making a ton of money, and I was looking for some flexible work hours so I could spend more time with my new child, hence getting my real estate license. However, I soon discovered that most of the houses I got the chance to look at were maybe more representative of the picture in the left-hand corner on my screen. I did have flexible work hours. I could pick whichever 80 hours a week I wanted to work. And if you could see on the right-hand side, my children were often my assistants. My son at the age of 2 would ask people when he met them if their garage was attached or detached. And my daughter's first word was radon. And the pile of money at the bottom really still feels a little more representative of the amount of taxes I pay as opposed to the amount of money I make. However, after about 15 years of real estate and having the honor of helping about 1,000 families, I do still love real estate, and it has not aged me a bit. I have to keep this slide in because my dear friend Carl, he gets a kick out of it every time he sees it. So hopefully, since we do have the live camera on, you guys can tell the difference that this is photoshopped. Now I'm going to switch enough about me, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my friend Ashley Oakland. I met Ashley back in December of 2006. She was also a real estate agent, but we met through her boyfriend, who was a dear friend of ours. I met Ashley at one of my husband's work Christmas parties that I was not too excited to go to. From the time I met Ashley, I knew that my life was forever changed. She had this smile that lit up the room, and she had the heart to go with it. When you got to know Ashley, you felt blessed. She made you feel like the most important person in the room. She remembered those special things. It was Ashley, who was younger than me and did not have kids yet, that remembered my son's first day of preschool and made sure to call that morning to check in on me to see how mama was doing after drop off and insist that we would have lunch that day. It's this time of year that I always remember Ashley would come by and drop off miniature pumpkins for my kid and many other kids as well. She would always call on trick or treat night to make sure that I was going to bring Jace over because she wanted to see him in his costume. I remember stopping over at their house, and she had a picture of Jace in a frame in her house, and again, my heart just swelled, because if you're like me, if you love my kids, you can do no wrong. The thing about Ashley too was when you were with her, she made you feel like the only friend that she had in the world. You were important, you were cherished, and you were loved by her, and she let you know that. Ashley was a daughter, she was a sister, she was a girlfriend, a realtor, and a friend to many, many others. To meet Ashley, you loved Ashley. Now, I came across this quote several years ago, and it really resonated with me. There are moments that mark your life, moments when you realize nothing will ever be the same, and time is now divided into 2 parts, before this and after this. For me, one of those such days was April 8th, 2011. It was just another Friday. I woke up and my mom was in town to watch my children, so I had a packed day. I remember I stopped at Starbucks and got a tall hot chocolate because what adult drinks coffee? I had a girlfriend who was getting married and I had agreed to take the photos for her wedding because, again, as realtors, we are pretty much jack of all trades and can do anything anyway. I went and took the pictures for her wedding. We went in a limo ride, celebrated, had a little lunch at her dad's house, and then I headed home to get ready for a few showings. I had 3 showings that I was going to do for my client named Garnet before heading to the wedding reception later that evening. Now, these 3 showings were the, I believe, 793rd, 794th, and 795th showings of homes that I had shown Garnet. You probably had some of those clients that every house we went in, it was, this home's nice, but it's not gonna work. So this Friday afternoon, we were out. After we looked at house number 1 and 2, we drove to what you see on your screen, 360 Southeast Legacy Point Boulevard in Waukee. Now, I have shown, I could not even tell you how many homes over the years. No address sticks in my mind like this one. As I was approaching the house, Garnet's daughter said, I just heard on the radio that there was a shooting in West Des Moines. I still remember opening the lockbox and turned around and said, boy, that's weird. Because you see, West Des Moines is a very nice area where crime does not happen. It's over by our mall. There are several nice houses, areas. It's very safe. You'll see people out walking. You'll see kids out playing. It's just not an area that you would expect to hear that, especially on a Friday afternoon. It was probably about 3 o'clock at this point. So we went into the house and again, started looking through it. I started to hear Garnet say, this house is nice, but, and I noticed that my phone started blowing up. I was receiving text after text and call after call, and as any good agent, I kept ignoring it, but you know, our eyes tend to glance down. I got my 3rd call from my real estate broker at the time, and I excused myself and said, do you mind if I pick this up? I went into this bedroom here that you see on the bottom screen. I was a little annoyed that she kept calling, but we did have a deal going on at the time that had a major snafu. Of course, life ending, that the paint touch-ups did not match when we went to do our final walkthrough. So when I answered the phone, I said, hi, Kathy, how's it going? And she said, good. She asked where I was, and I said I was out showing. I asked if everything was okay, and I remember her pause and say, I need you to call me when you're done with your showing. I tend to be a bit stubborn, and when I decide I'm not going to get off the phone without you telling me something, I do not like surprises. I do not like the unknown. After a few times of asking, I just remember Kathy saying, I just had someone stop by and let us know that Ashley was shot during her open house. I remember coming back out to the living room in this picture, and I dropped to my knees, and I just remember that moment. That was it, the before and after. I remember just saying, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. I could not understand what was going on, and pretty much everything started spinning. You see, while I was showing houses across town, Ashley was holding her regularly scheduled daily open house at that model townhome in safe West Des Moines.
A real estate agent is dead tonight after somebody shot her twice inside the model townhome where she was working.
It all happened at 558 Stone Creek Village in West Des Moines. For reference, that's just north of Valley View Aquatic Center.
Laura Nichols is covering this story. She has been from the beginning. She brings us the latest from the newsroom tonight. Laura?
Well, police are still searching for answers to who could have done this. All day they've been searching the area and talking to neighbors, all to find out who could have shot and killed 27-year-old Ashley Oakland. A West Des Moines townhome development is now a crime scene. Shortly after 2 o'clock, a worker for Rotland Homes, the company that developed the area, heard a commotion inside this model townhome and went to check it out.
They heard a commotion, didn't say that they heard a gunshot, just a commotion, and went over and found the subject on the floor.
Inside, she found 27-year-old real estate agent Ashley Oakland. She was shot twice, once in the head and once in the chest.
When we arrived, found a subject on the floor, appeared to have had 2 gunshot wounds.
Oakland was taken to Methodist Medical Center in downtown Des Moines, but the Polk County Medical Examiner says she most likely died even before making it to the hospital. As for who could have done this,
right now investigators are canvassing the area and talking.
And that's still, every time I hear it, when I talk about this, it still takes my breath away. It's still, my eyes get a little foggy and it doesn't feel real. It feels as though I'm watching a Dateline story. And unfortunately, I wasn't. This became our life. Me as one of her friends, her family, so many in our area, our real estate community. It's still hard to listen to matter of fact because it happened to me. It happened to my friend. You know, the real estate agent is dead. That's my friend. The subject, that's Ashley that dropped pumpkins off to my kids. When you want to talk about she was shot twice, once in the head and once in the chest, I have that memory in my mind. I have that will never go away. And again, the loss was so great that it changed life forever. Now, the part I always gloss over when talking about this is we're approaching nearly 10 years later. We still have no answers. They still have not found who did this to Ashley. We don't know who, we don't know why, we just don't know. There are more answers and no questions. A lot of times we'll hear everything happens for a reason. I don't believe that. I don't believe that what happened to Ashley on that Friday in West Des Moines, Iowa, and in April in 2011, I don't believe it happened for a reason. I believe it was pure evil. I believe that whoever did this, they were evil. I believe that we still have no questions. I know that we have no answers. I know we have lots of questions. And I believe that there was no reason. But in the absence of reason, I believe we can still find purpose. So it can happen to you. What do we do now? Why am I here today? Why are you logged on to listen to this webinar for an hour? Why do I make myself open up about one of the most traumatic experiences of my life when I don't like to feel emotions? I don't like to share or show vulnerability. So why do I do it? Because it can happen to you. It can happen to one of our friends. It can happen to our colleagues. It could happen to a family member. I don't tell you that to be scared. I do not want you to live in fear. I did that. I did that for months and years after Ashley passed away. I remember that my daughter was young at the time, and I remember I would put her in her car seat and I would run through my mind how I was going to fall when somebody came up behind me and shot me so that she would be okay, my daughter would survive. I would go into a restaurant and still go into a restaurant and want to position myself so I could see things. Living in fear is not a way to live. I don't want you to be scared, but I want you to be prepared. I believe that we can be aware, we can be prepared, we can be educated. We can have conversations about this, even though they're not fun, and we can get better. We're going to continue now on to an area where I'm going to share some tips, tricks, tools that I've come across to use to be more prepared in my real estate. Again, as we mentioned, I practice in real estate in Des Moines, Iowa. Our Des Moines Area Association of Realtors, led by a couple of agents that I admire highly, Dylan DeBruin and Robin Polder, after the experience that we went through with Ashley, they really pushed and worked hard to push safety to the forefront. One of the biggest things that we did during this time to promote that was we created a Realtor Safety Pledge. You'll see this on your screen. It's pretty simple, to the point. Because I owe it to myself, my family, my colleagues, and my clients to implement safe showing practices, I pledge not to show a home to any stranger without first meeting them at an office or a public place and asking them to submit identification. So we have this on our website and we go through it with all new members. We bring this up often. It's something that we ask our realtors to go through and actually physically sign and to follow this. Another part of our safety pledge was creating the listing safety form that you're seeing on your screen now. Again, I can get you links. These are out on our website, or I could send them to you. This form we have in every listing packet to be discussed and signed with the seller. It's a super easy conversation. I've had it numerous times. Usually mine goes something like, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we are going to be listing your home, and with listing your home comes some risk. We're inviting strangers into your home. We don't want to discuss these things to scare you, but simply to prepare you. At that time, I'm also going to talk with them about things that were on the form, lock up any weapons or ammunition that you have, make sure your jewelries and valuables are secure and stored during showings, make sure that you lock up prescription drugs. This is one that I had never thought of, but one that tends to be something people look for when they're in open houses and showings. We also talk about making sure you do not have any personal information out. You know, identity theft is huge right now, so we make sure that we talk about that, making sure you just don't have any paperwork laying around when people are coming through. I also talk about removing family photos. This not only allows your buyer to be able to picture themselves in your home, but it also, somebody looking online cannot zoom in and figure out that you have 2 small children living there, for example. When I go back to the seller, I am saying you have the option of signing this form, which says that you are requesting that your home only be signed to shown to identified buyers. Now, the question I usually get is, what do you mean by an identified buyer? To which I am going to answer, an identified buyer is someone that I, as the realtor, know personally. It is a client that was referred to me by someone I know and trust. It is someone who was pre-qualified by a lender that I, again, know and trust. Or it is someone who has provided a government-issued photo identification. Most of the time when I explain this, the response I get is, why would I not want to sign this form? Most sellers are shocked that we would even consider pop-tarting and meeting a stranger at their house from a sign call and taking them into their personal home. Our sellers are expecting us to identify buyers and know who we're taking through. They're entrusting us to their biggest asset, their home, and also to their family and the safety of their family. A few other things I'm going to go through quickly. I could talk about safety for hours, but I know we're at a limited amount of time. So we're going to hit these somewhat quickly. I love free. I am super frugal. You can ask my assistant. I once made her help me figure out if it was cheaper to buy cheese that was pre-sliced for a client party, or if the sliced one, or if the non-sliced that we were going to cut up would be a better buy. So I love free. Any tip or tool that I can find that I'm already using is free, bonus. One thing that I use all the time is share your location. So we're Apple users at my house, so we have Find My Phone. My family can always pull up, they can identify where I'm at. My assistant always has access to that. So if I'm not responding for a time frame, they can pull that up. Another one that we have started using is Life 360. This is a perfect one as I'm finding entering the teenage years with my kid. It definitely gives you more information as far as notifications when they leave areas, the top speed that they went on drives. I am very glad that my parents did not have access to this type of information as I was growing up. But there's tons of these out there. Again, the Find My on Apple is free. I know Android users or something like that, because I used to use that back in the day. I urge you to find some kind of means to do a background check on the people that you're talking with. We personally use Forewarn. Our association provided that as a member benefit to everyone in the DMAR Association of Realtors last year, and it has been awesome. So every call, every buyer, every for sale by owner that I'm going to show their house, every referral, I run through Forewarn. I either search them by their name or their phone number. That's going to pull up, here's just an example record. It's going to pull up different phone numbers they had. It's going to tell me their current address. It's going to tell me past addresses that they've lived at, possible criminal records, vehicle records, property records. So I'll use this just in a conversation. If I'm talking to someone that called and they say, yes, I just sold my house for sale by owner, I'm going to ask them, oh, where was your house at? Now I have that information. I can check it against Forewarn. Their property record lines up with what they told me, which also lines up with the phone number that they called for and the name that they told me. So all of this kind of stuff I'm using as a checks and balances. I'm looking at possible criminal records. We know information is only as good as what they have, so take it with a grain of salt. It's definitely not the end all be all, but it's something, it's a tool that we can use. So if I look at that, I think this example may have been possession underage. Depending upon their age at 43, I'm probably not too concerned about that one, but you can make your own assessment. Another thing I do is I search everyone on Facebook. Do I have mutual clients? Do I have mutual friends? You know, I may reach out and say, how do you know Joe? Just to feel a little more comfortable from that standpoint. Also, Googling their name. You would be surprised what pops up. You may even want to Google your name to know that. Another area that I use from a safety standpoint, again, free, in my contact records, when you pull up any given contact, this one's just a sample, I'm going to have detailed tons of information. So obviously it's going to have their name, their phone number, email address, their home address. I'm going to put in their spouse's name, so that way it'll cross-reference when I'm trying to pull up their contacts. I'm going to put in kids' names, pets' names. I may put in that they played football at Notre Dame or that they won a hot dog eating contest, because not only is this a safety tip, it's also a way that I can seem very connected with my clients and pull this up and then remember that. I'm also going to add how I met this person. So as in this example, she was a referral from Cami Client. So again, if I have Cami Client, then I can search her and it's going to pull up sample contact. So that way, if for some reason something happened, my assistant would know how to get in and contact Cami Client for some more information or just additional information from that. I usually put in what lender they're approved through and also that they have been cleared in the Forewarn from my search. Just going back quickly to Forewarn, you can email yourself a PDF to put in your file just so you have that information as well. Another area where, again, detail is just my calendar. So when I'm on buyer showings, I'll type in the buyer's name and then buyer showing. If you go into notes, it's going to have every property that I will be showing that night. It'll also say the approximate times that I should be arriving at those properties. This helps to keep me on schedule so I can pull up and say, okay, yes, we're right on schedule. Again, if there was some reason that I wasn't where I was supposed to be, my husband or Kira would have a place to start. They'll know where it was supposed to be. Also, when your buyer calls you and says that they want to see the house that we looked at a couple of weeks ago, and I cannot remember what house we looked at a couple of weeks ago because I've shown 75 houses from then to now, I can quickly find that, and so it's very helpful from a practicality standpoint as well. One of the biggest things is to have a plan. What I do may not be what works for you, but you need to have a plan. I'm a big proponent of taking a self-defense class. My biggest advice on this is that you need to take it often and regularly. You learn the moves, you learn how you could best use your body to take down someone if you needed, but if it's not something that you practice on a regular basis, when you're put in that stress situation, you have to practice that so those moves come automatic. So take that regularly, take it often, get together with your friends, make it something kind of fun. Know your phone. So on, again, my Apple phone, which I am not always technically fluid, but I know that if I push 3 times, it will ring out to an emergency. It will call the police officers. So just know what you have available at your hands. Most of the time we have our phones with us. So if there's a quick way that I know how to use that, the safer I am. Make sure you set up a text system. So have code words. I may call in, we've all heard, I need my red file, or I forgot my keys at the office. Anything like that. I know there's a team, I believe it's in Colorado, that they use certain emojis. So if they would send this emoji out, it means that they are in trouble and they need help, and they also share their calendars with each other so someone could go and check on them. Use a buddy system. You know, I always am telling my agents that I am happy to go with them. So, you know, find someone that'll go with you, take a spouse, a friend, have them even sit in the car, just so you have that extra support. Personal alarms or jewelry, there's a ton of different things out there on the market that you can look at. There's Invisaware charms that are a bracelet that you could push, you know, personal alarms that you would pull a key and throw it and it makes a loud noise. I just saw a product the other day, Reflex, that it's another spray thing, but it doesn't get into the air and those kind of things. You know, I'm so proud of my agents, my team. They a lot of times will send me a text and say, hey, I'm meeting this person. They were a sign call. I ran them through forewarned. Here's a screenshot. I'm going at this time. I think I'll be here this long. And they send that to me, so then they know about that time I'm going to be checking in and making sure everything's okay. So it's just one more step, but it's one more step that I know where they're at. You know, there's several tips. We could go on and on and on. Situational awareness, get off your phones, pay attention. I'm as guilty of this as anyone else. You know, so many times we have our heads buried in our phone. I tend to just kind of zone out when I'm different places. One thing that we used with our kids when they were younger, and it was actually to try and help with eye contact, but it works. When we would be at a restaurant, the waitress would come to order. After she would leave, I would ask the kids what color her eyes were. So it made them pay attention. It made them look her in the eye. And this is something I even try to do with myself, so that when I get in somewhere, I ask myself, did I know what color the car was next to me? Did I know, you know, that there was somebody sitting in that car? Not that I care about that, but just it creates a habit of being aware of your surroundings. Definitely there are open house specifics. When you're in there, make sure that you have exit points. Make sure you have a door unlocked, a window unlocked. Check those windows when you leave the house. Go over different things with your sellers. I like to make sure that my sellers are also checking windows and those things after they come home from an open house. Internet-based cameras, we are really lucky. You can buy cameras now that are going to stream it out on the web. Very inexpensive. Again, something to pick up to invest in during your open house Have your computer on so that it is streaming to someone in a different location. You can also reference the seller security system, whether they have one or not. That's a big topic that we talk about a lot here in Iowa, as to, you know, the seller has security systems, they could be listening to what we say. Again, it just kind of notes that you are not alone and that somebody is listening. Another one, if you see something, say something. It's tough sometimes. Sometimes we have so much going in our own world and we just want to keep our head down, not get involved, but please see something, you say something. You could be the difference between life and death for someone. And trust your instincts. That's the biggest one. Don't worry about being nice. Don't worry about what they will say. I once called a cop to walk through a vacant home with me because when I entered it, there was spray paint and graffiti all over the walls on it. Now, it had just evidently been kids in there that had done that, but I didn't know. I did not know if there was somebody still in the house. So trust your gut, make those phone calls. Don't be embarrassed. That's what they're there for. I would rather have you call and say sorry than not make that call. Finally, and this is the biggest thing that I want to ask each of you, is to keep the conversation going. It is very easy to get complacent. Sometimes we will hear a talk like this or have something happen to us or have a scary situation that we find ourselves in. And we do things better for a while. And then we slip back. And pretty soon I find myself not putting in the addresses into my calendar or not being as detailed on my contact or stop sharing location or not making sure my cell phone is charged up when I go out. We have to be aware of this all of the time. We have to be continually talking about it. You know, our technology even is constantly changing. So keeping this conversation is keeping us up to date with everything that's out there. I ask you to hold each other accountable. You know, there are times where my agents have called me out and said, oh, so you're going to meet this person and you don't know them. There are times where I will call them out. So we're all here to help each other, hold each other accountable, ask a ton of questions. You know, you are doing your buyers favor when you pre-qualify them on the phone. I will ask them, are they working with another agent? Have they been pre-approved? I will ask them to send their copy of their driver's license before I will meet them. It's also very easy if you use something like the listing safety form. It's a very easy conversation. This seller has requested that the home only be shown to identified buyers. So I need that copy of your driver's license and your pre-approval letter so that I am honoring the wishes of the seller. Super easy. So again, just please keep those conversations going. I have been honored to serve on the Beverly Carter Foundation. This is a nonprofit. I met my dear friend Carl through this. He lost his sweet mama Beverly Carter nearly 6 years ago this week when she was out showing houses. This foundation, it was created by Carl with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to further the mission of making sure that every real estate agent arrives home safely every day. There is a ton of resources on this website. So please go take a look at it, take a look at the information. There are different video clips. It will link you to so much information on there. And with that, I think we are at the time that we will answer a few questions if you guys have any. And I cannot see them on my screen, so I believe.
Yeah, hi Jen, I'm back.
Hello.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. You did receive several questions, so I've noted them here. I will say we did get one question multiple times, and I can answer it, and that is that yes, this presentation is recorded. It will be available for everyone to watch again or to share with your colleagues or agents who weren't able to join us today. It should be available later this week, and you can access that at nar.realtor/safety. I'll ask Bernelli or Manny to please drop that URL in the chat box for everyone there. Thank you so much. One question you got multiple times, Jen, was, can you please share the safety pledge form and the listing safety form?
Yes, absolutely. What would be easiest way to do that? To email it to you? It's also on our website at dmar.com, but I am happy to send it over and you guys can, manipulate it, use it. If you come up with something that you think is really a great addition, I would love for you to share that back, because it's definitely something that is constantly improving. Sorry, I'm reading the comments now. It's Des Moines, DESMOINES, area realtors, and the website's just dmaar.com. And if you go out to the website and there's a safety spot right on the top, you can click on that. And we also have videos out there. So there's one that explains the safety pledge. There's one that explains identified buyers, how to meet a prospect and ask for identification. So there's some free videos out there that kind of go over this in more detail too.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And what we can do is, if you send the forms over to me, we'll make sure to post them along with the recording of the webinar so they can access them in one place as well. Thank you for that. And yet we just had about 25 more questions come in just now, literally. So the next one here is, what can agents do to stay safe on an initial listing appointment if they cannot bring an associate with them?
And so a few different tools that I use. Again, I'm going to put them through forewarn. I'm going to have looked on Facebook to see, do we have mutual friends? A lot of times for me, my husband, he'll know where I'm going. He'll know approximately what time I think I'll be done. He will perhaps even call or text during, and I'll say, oh, I just need to check this. And I may say everything looks good, everything doesn't. So those, the biggest thing is, if for some reason I find myself in a position where I don't feel comfortable, I'm going to come up with a reason to get out of there. And if it's, I'm sorry, all of a sudden I'm not feeling well, I need to leave. If it is, my house is on fire, it's just one of those things where trust your gut. That is your biggest tool. Again, like I would have my phone with me, so if I hit the 3 buttons, hopefully I could get it to dial out 911. So those kind of things are any of these tools 100%? Absolutely not, but they're giving you the tools to be prepared and then make the decisions based upon what you're comfortable with.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jen. The next question that's come up several times here in the Q&A is, I believe what we're referencing here is the emergency SOS feature on iPhones, but you referenced tapping your phone 3 times and making that emergency call.
Mine is actually, if I hit it 3 times, because I've accidentally done this. So check out your phone and what it is, but mine, if I hit 3 times, it calls out to 911. Or it gives me a warning. It gives me a 3-second warning that if I don't click no, it'll just automatically call 911.
Yes, and I just for everyone here, I actually found some great resources just by Googling iPhone's emergency SOS earlier this week. They have similar.
I know somebody's asking. So for me, if I click it on the side, it should, there. So it just went off by clicking it on the side. And I have to stop calling so the police don't get called.
Yes, so that's great. And if you have an Android, you can find that information just from a quick Google search as well. I know for my phone, if I hold down both buttons, it gives me a 5-second countdown. If I don't click cancel, it's going to call 911. I can program emergency contacts in my phone too. So after that call to 911, it's going to text my emergency contacts my location, and they're going to know that I just made an emergency call. So I would encourage everyone to look into that. It may be a little bit different on your phone depending on what type of phone you have, as Jim said. we had a question come in about open houses, Jen. They were curious your opinion on open houses, if you still host open houses.
Yes, very good question. You know, I started again in '06. For us in our area, the market was very different. So I had a townhome new construction project. I sat in a model home every Saturday and Sunday. 82% of my business at that time came from open houses. I loved meeting people. I still like that. Now, at the time that I experienced the loss of Ashley, my children were getting older and getting in activities. At that point, I kind of converted most of my business to referral based. So I made a decision to go away from open houses at that point for several reasons. At that point, I just was still experiencing enough trauma that I would have not been any good to my seller or myself there. I think that it's a conversation that you need to have with your sellers, and you need to be very upfront with the risk and the reward of open houses. You know, you can pull data as to if open houses in your market are lucrative, or is it more lucrative for an agent trying to pick up buyers? So I think having that conversation, you know, for me, it is just something that I don't offer. And I'm very clear with my agents or with my sellers upfront that that is not within my marketing plan for several different reasons. And safety is one of them that I have made that choice. But I definitely don't think there's a black and white or right or wrong. 100%.
Absolutely. Thank you. This one just came in. It's a little bit longer. Would it make sense to meet someone at a coffee shop or somewhere right before a showing for ID? And then there's a second part to the question. What are some tips, let's say if they don't look like their ID, how would you go about not moving forward with that appointment?
Yes. So it does help to meet somebody right before. However, you need to kind of role play or have an idea of how you're going to say, I'm sorry, I just don't feel comfortable with going forward with the showing. I would probably say something came up, this isn't a good time, something happened. But I typically am going to have them send that to me ahead of time. So I'm going to have it on my phone. Again, that way I'm able to give it out to my, you know, if another agent or my husband. Can people scam you on that? Absolutely. That's where I love the forewarn piece of when I'm just naturally having those initial conversations with them, even on the phone, I'm trying to pull out information. Again, part of it is to do my job. Part of it is to go back to forewarn and say, okay, this is really weird because they called from this number, but the name doesn't match. Or they said that they recently had a house in Texas, but I see nothing of that and show that they were living right around the corner for the last 12 years. And I think you have to be careful walking away. If you don't feel comfortable, you have to be okay saying, I'm not taking new clients at this time, or I don't think that we are a good fit to work together. I have a buyer consultation with every single client before I ever show them a home. That's going to be in a coffee shop, in my office where I know other people are. And during that, I'm going to identify them. I'm also going to go through the process, which sets us up, but I'm also going to get a feel of A, do I feel safe around this person? And B, are we a good fit to work together? So I think all of that can aid you in this. You know, taking a copy of their driver's license, keeping it in your file, a copy of their forewarn report. Like I say, nothing is an end all be all 100%, but we're using tools, and then you have to go back to trusting your gut.
Absolutely. All right, we've got a few more here. I love this question. What is the best way to talk to fellow realtors about safety?
It really depends on the relationship that you have with them. There are several different videos out there. There are different programs that you can bring in. I always kind of go back to you have to love them before you can preach at them. So I am going to talk to my team of 8 differently than I might talk to another agent in my office that I don't know as well. My team, I'm going to call them out on it, as they will call me out on it and say, ooh, I can't believe, no, we're not doing that. I'm going to meet you. We're going to go. Now, an agent in my office that I may not know as well, I may say, hey, would you like me to go with you? I have been in that scenario before where I didn't know someone and it just made me feel a little safer. So I think it's all in the presentation. There are definitely speakers that you can bring in, videos that you can share. Like I said, out on our site, we have free videos. Out on the Beverly Carter Foundation website, there are free videos. So those are great to play in an office meeting as well if you have those. And then it opens up dialogue and just be really honest and respect everybody's opinions and differences on everything as well.
All great resources. We also have many resources available on nar.realtor/safety too. More videos, recorded webinars just like this one will be posted for everyone as well. And I would say the more we talk about safety, the more we can have these conversations, the better. So I wanted to make sure we got to that question. Should an agent do the same screening when going to a listing presentation as they would do when working with a buyer?
I think definitely, because if you're going to a listing presentation, you're likely going into their house. So again, you've got to make sure that you have set yourself up for success in that. Yes, you're entering their home. There are ways where you can still position yourself in the home, that you're not letting yourself get backed into a corner. If you don't feel safe, take someone along with you. You can even have one of those web-based cameras and just say, I'm taking photos, I am recording part of this, it goes out so that I then have that later to look at. That's another deterrent that you could use when you're going out there. But I think when you're going to listings, it's as important, if not more important, to do that as well.
Great. A couple of questions about if you could repeat the link for the Beverly Carter Foundation.
Yes, I can actually, there. Can you guys see that? So it's beverlycarterfoundation.org. I have it back up on my screen. I don't know if you guys can see that or not.
I don't see that one, but thank you for repeating it. That's great. And several questions have come in about tract homes, model homes. Open houses at model homes allows anyone inside, no IDs checked. What advice would you have in that situation?
Your builder can be your best advocate on that as well. So I would recommend having a conversation with your builder. I've had a lot of builders here that have been open to the idea of having a camera installed. If they're going to have their model home open for quite a while and they're going to go to the expense of staging it, those kind of things, if you think about it, a camera also is protecting the items in the house. Hopefully you have a builder that respects you enough to want your safety to be also as important as the items in their house. You can implement if you have a seller that is willing to, you can implement you must show your ID before entering this home. It's really what you can work with the builder to make sure that both are on the same page. You may not, you may get to a point where if you and a builder do not see eye and eye and your comfort level isn't there, as hard as it is, sometimes you need to walk away from that relationship.
Okay. We have two questions that kind of go hand in hand here, but from two different attendees. What reason do you give to meet someone beforehand if you have already seen their ID? And what do you go over in that initial meeting?
So I have one this afternoon that I'll be meeting with someone. I have a buyer presentation. It's a super quick presentation. The way I present it to a buyer is I really don't give them an option. So when we start working together, I'm going to do a buyer and consultation. It typically takes between 30 and 45 minutes. During this time, I'm going to go over the buying process. I know you may have purchased before, but things change at times. I work a little differently than maybe you're used to in the past. I want to tell you a little bit about myself, tell you how I work, see what you're looking for in an agent, go over the process. And then also if if we are lining up to be a good fit to work together, then we're going to at that point go through what you're looking for in a home as well. Before that meeting, I'm really going to want them pre-approved because I'm wasting my time and their time if they aren't pre-approved or if they think they're at 250,000. I've also found, because again, we get compliant and once in a while I myself get lazy and we don't have that buyer consultation meeting. Those are the transactions where I'm constantly spinning, because I think those buyer consultations do many different things. One thing that they do is set us up as the expert. It tells them, here's how the process is going to work and here's what I do. So now I'm in control, hopefully most of the time, versus them leading me. I'm setting myself up, explaining how it's going to go.
Great. The second sort of follow-up to that question is, do you ever have people balk at providing their ID to you, and how do you handle that situation?
Yes, I do. And again, it's kind of like I tell my kids, kick it back on me. So for the seller, I sometimes use the seller as the scapegoat. The seller has requested, again, that I only show the house to identified buyers. And if you can't provide me that or are unwilling, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show you the house, because I'm a professional and I have to follow the request of the seller. Now, the problem is we have to hold ourselves accountable and we have to all practice a level of professionalism, because they can pick up the phone and they can call another agent, and there are agents out there that will Pop-Tart and go. But I just believe that my life, my business, my value is worth more, that if I don't feel comfortable, I want to come home to my kids, and my why is bigger than any paycheck, I guess.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I believe that really brings us to the end of our time here. And Jen, I know you couldn't see all of the chats coming in as you were giving your wonderful presentation, but I want to let you know you were receiving so many thanks, so much gratitude for sharing your story, though it's a very hard story for you to tell. We really appreciate you being here with us today and sharing these wonderful tips. They're rolling in now again. So much thank you, so much love. So again, thank you to everyone for attending today. We will get this recorded, or is being recorded. We'll get it posted up on nar.realtor/safety later on this week. And Jen, thank you again. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. Have a great day. Stay safe.